Morning, it's me. I think this might be episode 8 of Built from Scratch. So, for the first time, I don't have a great deal to talk about yesterday, rather than... the day before yesterday it was. Rather than going through a whole bunch of different tasks and figuring new stuff out, I actually just spent the whole day redoing the sort of video processing guide that I'm putting together for myself, which is because I'd previously written it on the basis that I'd just be making a single video and then processing it into a YouTube video, podcast, written document, etc. Then and there for that one video. But I've since recognised that it's probably going to be quite a lot more time efficient to build up maybe a week's worth of videos and then bulk process them. And it, as I think I previously stated, it is imperative that this is a fairly efficient process, because it's going to take up a fair chunk of time, even in its most efficient form, and there is a real limit to how much I can spend on doing it. So that's the new plan, bulk processing, and for the guide that I'm writing to be useful, it's going to have to be really quite accurate and easy to read, because it's really quite a big process. There are, what would I guess, number of steps off the top of my head. I reckon it's probably about a 100-step guide, roughly. And that's not including really obvious steps that I will quickly not need to concentrate on, so I'm not bothering to write them down. So it's quite a big document, and I really don't need to be having to sort of mentally reprocess that as I'm going through it to mean something slightly different to what I've actually written. So it was, I spent the day essentially rewriting that, and I haven't finished yet. There's probably another day's work in it, I think. So that kind of has made me re-question whether the whole thing is worth it, because I'm now, about 2.5-3 weeks into setting up Wave, and all I've done so far is the built from scratch content, and I haven't even finished getting to grips with that, and it is, even when I have got to grips with it, it's going to continue being a considerable time drain from then on. But every time I think about it, I do draw the conclusion that it is worth it, because if I wasn't doing it and I wasn't able to think of a decent replacement for it in terms of sort of unique content, I'd be looking at setting up an e-commerce site, essentially, if I'm using e-commerce to just mean any kind of monetization of a website, with nothing to make me believe it was going to work apart from a willingness and ability to write written content and aim it at perhaps fairly long tail keywords which can allow you to attract traffic even when your site doesn't have any authority, and that would be it. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that would work to some extent, and I know certainly from what I've read and listened to of Niche Pursuits and Authority Hacker, which are two content creators that I may have mentioned previously as being a fan of, you can definitely get quite a long way without doing sort of unique content marketing or the link building that goes with it. You can get quite a long way just by creating that content and putting it out there. But I feel like if I'm really going to get somewhere with this in any kind of short space of time, I do need something that's going to attract attention and links. And this is the best thing I can think of to do. So yes, I think it is worth it. And I just have to keep reminding myself that as soon as I get this first step out of the way of actually learning how to do stuff, and then learning how to do it reasonably quickly, things will speed up a lot. If I, like, for example, the bulk editing of these videos, well, not just the editing, the processing and the putting them out there, I'd previously ascribed like maybe a maximum of about an hour a day to doing the individual videos, and I was hopeful that I might achieve that, but I was fairly unsure. But now that I've realised that I can bulk process them at the end of the week, I am more confident it's going to be possible. I think putting aside 5 hours in one day to process and disseminate 5 videos seems like a doable thing, I think. Because it just means, you know, each step of the way you open up one program, like, you know, the editing suite, and just do the same process 5 times in a row. There'll be no hesitancy, because, well, there might be the first one, but the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, there won't be. So I think it's quite doable, and it won't take up too much time. So that is about all I've got to say today with regards to that. There's no point actually mentioning what I was going through in the processing guide, because I've pretty much covered it before. So all I'm going to mention is some collateral stuff, like the fact that yesterday I wasn't working despite it being a Wednesday, because my wife had to work, and normally on a Wednesday we get some our parental help for looking after the kids, so their grandparents in other words, but the grandparents are selfishly on holiday this week, so I had to look after both the kids all day, which obviously meant no work got done. I then went out yesterday evening with a friend in a nearby city, which meant I didn't get to bed until about 11:30, which for all you youngsters out there, or maybe old people, basically anyone who isn't currently looking after young children, that might seem like quite a normal, reasonable time to go to bed, but at the moment I'm generally getting woken up at about 5:30 in the morning by our 1-year-old. So 11:30 was actually extremely late by current standards, and lo and behold, the 1-year-old did actually wake up at 5:10 this morning. So I am suffering a tiny bit today, especially since I had a couple of beers last night. You do have to try and continue living a little bit, even when you are bringing up a young family, and even when it is we are suffering the ravages of COVID-19 at the moment. You've still got to do a little bit of socialising. So that was lovely and totally worth it, but it means today I'm not exactly full of beans. But these are the kind of things I suppose you have to deal with. I have been self-employed before. I'm aware of the fact that you need to stay on track and stay motivated. And in fact, I don't suffer from a lack of motivation. I tend to work hard when I'm self-employed, more so than when I'm employed, if I'm being honest. Just because I enjoy what I'm doing, and I like the feeling of doing the things that I think are worthwhile, and that gives me a sort of energy and drive to get things done that I don't tend to experience when the only reason I've got to do things is a sort of an obligation to provide some work in exchange for pay. I find that generally speaking, when I'm an employee, you almost always are getting asked to do stuff that you perhaps don't think are the most useful things to spend your time doing. and I'm just not very good at ploughing through that kind of work if I don't think it's useful. But that's not the case here. However, what I'm actually saying, simply that it can still get hard sometimes, even if you are motivated, because life gets in the way. And when you don't have to turn up to an office 9 to 5 and have your boss or your colleagues kind of looking over your shoulder to make sure that you are at least sitting at your desk doing something that looks a bit like work, at least, then it is very easy to actually just get taken away from work completely, or to turn up like I have done today on about 5 hours sleep and feeling a bit rough, and to kind of sack it off essentially. But to anyone out there who's trying to work for themselves and are struggling with sort of energy and motivation, I would just say don't worry too much about stuff like that. You will power through if you're into what you're doing, and if you're finding that you are not powering through, then I would suggest the solution is probably not to completely cut out socialising or avoid any other kind of tasks, and the solution is perhaps more to look at what you're doing, figure out if you actually enjoy it and is it actually going somewhere that you want it to go, because I suspect that if you're suffering a lack of motivation with regards to your own project, it's probably that there's a problem with what you're doing rather than what's actually externally messing up your motivation. Final point for the day, on the same lines, is it's the same thing essentially, is that I also got a request yesterday from a sort of family member who has recently set up a website of their own, because they are going self-employed in the field that they are trained for, and they've set up a website with Wix. Wix is a big provider of like make your own website type services in the UK. I'm guessing it probably is worldwide, and she needed to know how to get her name prominent on her website, so that if clients were searching for her name, it would actually get found rather than people that she's worked for previously. And I was happy to help, and I think I've been able to give her some good actionable advice that should help her out. But again, just doing that took about sort of 20-30 minutes to formulate the answer, and these things really can eat up your time, so you do have to manage them a little bit, but at the end of the day, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you'll probably power through. So that's the end of my ramblings for today. That has come in at 13 minutes, which is great. I've been looking forward to doing a video that actually takes less than the 15 minutes I've mentally put aside for doing it. So I'll wrap it up there and get on with this video processing guide. Okay, see you later.